Let us not approach the Ramayana as a story we already know. For the Ramayana is not merely a tale of events long past. It is a mirror, and every time we listen to it, that mirror reflects a new truth. For each listening reveals another layer. For the rishis of Bharata did not compose these stories merely to entertain the mind. They composed them to awaken the mind. The Upanishads declare, Shravanayapi bahurbhiryo nalabhyaha, says Katha Upanishad. Even hearing the truth is rare for many, it says. Yet when the heart becomes receptive, a single listening can illuminate a lifetime. Now reflect upon this remarkable fact with me. When the story of the Ramayanam was first narrated, it was not narrated after the events had long faded into history. It was in fact narrated while the life of Sri Rama was still unfolding. By the time Narada Maharshi came to the ashram of Valmiki, the great avatara of Rama had already lived most of his earthly life. His sons, Lava and Kusha, had already been born. They were already residing in the very ashram of Valmiki Maharshi. And yet, Narada did not narrate the entire epic. He spoke only a concise summary of 100 shlokas, just 100. And yet, from that seed emerged 24,000 verses of the Ramayana. How did Valmiki Maharshi know the intimate details? How did he know the thoughts of Rama, the sorrows of Sita, the dilemmas of Lakshmana, or the inner conflicts of Ravana? How could he narrate not merely the events but the inner worlds of every character in Ramayana? The answer lies in the boon granted by Srishtikarta Brahma himself. Brahma had assured Valmiki. He said, "Nothing in the story shall remain hidden from you, not even the unspoken, not even the thoughts within the hearts of men." This is why Ramayanam is not merely called an Itihasa, it is called the Adi Kavyam, the first and the greatest poem. And a poem is not meant to be read only once. It must be returned to again and again. For each shloka contains subtle shades of Dharma. The sages of the Upanishads often reminded us, Dharmo Vishwasya Jagatah Pratishtha. Dharma is the foundation upon which the whole world stands. And in the Ramayana, we witness Dharma not merely as a principle, but as a living being. For Sri Rama is known as Ramo Vigravaham Dharmaha. Rama is Dharma embodied. Nor should we dismiss this epic because of its antiquity. For Brahma himself spoke these prophetic words. He declared that for as long as mountains stand and rivers flow upon this earth, the story of Rama will be sung among men. The Upanishads also echo this timelessness. Nayamatma kalamena nashyati. Truth does not perish with time, say the Upanishads. And so the Ramayanam continues to live, not as an artifact of the past, but as a living guide to the art of life. Even Sri Mahavishnu, before descending as Rama, declared his purpose. He would take birth as a human being, and through that life, he would demonstrate to the world how great a human being can become. The Upanishads proclaim, Tattvam Asi, thou art that. The highest truth of existence can manifest through human life itself, and Rama lived that truth. He showed how Dharma can guide a man through joy and exile, love and loss, power and renunciation. Thus, he remains an eternal role model, a teacher of the art of living. Let us now turn to the events of the second Sarga. Having listened to the narration of Narada Maharshi, the mind of Valmiki Maharshi was completely absorbed in the thoughts of Rama. So deeply did the story move him that it began to reshape his inner world. The rishis remind us, Yad bhavam tad bhavati. As one thinks, so one becomes. With the story of Rama echoing in his heart, Valmiki Maharshi set out with his disciple Bharadvaja towards the sacred banks of the Tamasa river. Pause for a moment. Imagine the serenity of that place, a quiet forest, crystal waters flowing through gently, the stillness of a world untouched by noise. Seeing the purity of this river, Valmiki turned to his disciple and said, "These waters are pure, like the mind of a virtuous man." He said, "San manushya mano yatha." Such purity arises only in a mind free from agitation. The Upanishads describe such a mind beautifully as Yada panchavatishtante jnanani manasa saha. When the senses and the mind become still, then truth and insight dawns. But destiny had another moment awaiting the Maharshi. While returning from the river, Valmiki witnessed a simple event. A hunter released an arrow. It struck a croncha bird. The bird fell to the ground. Its mate cried out in grief. A simple moment, after all. Yet the heart of the Maharshi was deeply moved. Such was the sensitivity of the Rishi. The Upanishads teach us, Yaha sarveshu bhuteshu atmanam pashyati. The one who sees himself in all beings. For such a person, the suffering of any creature becomes his own. Moved by compassion and sorrow, Valmiki uttered a curse upon the hunter. But something remarkable happened. The words flowed out not as ordinary speech, but as a perfectly formed shloka. Grief had transformed itself into poetry. From shoka arose a shloka. And thus, the very first verse of the Adi Kavyam was born. Soon afterward, a divine visitor arrived. Brahmadeva, the creator himself, appeared in the ashram of Valmiki. He confirmed what had just happened. The Saraswati of divine speech had begun to flow through the Maharshi, and Brahma commanded him. "Compose the story of Rama," he said. "Tell the world his sacred history. Let every detail be revealed to you." And thus began the creation of the Ramayanam, not merely as literature, but as Vedopabrahmanam, a poetic unfolding of the Vedic wisdom. And now, just as that sacred story began to flow through the heart of Valmiki Maharshi, let us also open our minds and hearts, for this is not merely the story of Rama, it is a story meant to transform the listener. Let us witness together the moment when the Adi Kavyam came into existence, and allow ourselves to be immersed in this most enchanting tale. Naradasya tu tadvakyam shrutva vakya visharadaha pujayamasa dharmatma sahashishyo mahamunim. Yathavat pujitastena devarshir naradastatha aprukchaye vapyanugyataha sajagama vihayasam. Samuhurtam gate tasmin devalokam munistada jagama tamasa jahnavyasta vidurataha. Satutiram samasadhya tamasaya munistada shishyamaha stitam parshve društva tirthamakartamam. Akartamidam tirtham bharadvaja nishamaya ramaniyam prasannambu san manushya mano yatha. Nyasyatam kalashastata diyatam valkalam mama idamevava gahishye tamasa tirthamamuttamam. एवमुक्तो भरद्वाजो वाल्मीकेन महात्मना प्रायच्छत् मुनिस्तस्य वल्कलं नियतो गुरोः। स शिष्यहस्ताद आदाय वल्कलं नियतेन्द्रियः विचचारः पश्यंस्तत् सर्वतो विपुलं वनम्। तस्याभ्यासे तु मिथुनं चरन्तमनुपायिनं ददर्श भगवांस्तत्र क्रौञ्चयोश्चारुनिस्वनम्। तस्मात्तु मिथुनादेकं पुमांशं पापनिश्चयः जगान वैरनिलयो निषादस्तस्य पश्यतः। तं शोणितपरीताङ्गं चेष्टमानं महीतले भार्या तु निहितं दृष्ट्वा रुराव करुणां गिरम्। वियुक्तापतिना तेन द्विजेन सहचारिणा ताम्रशीर्षेण मत्तेन पत्रिणा सहितेन वै। तथाविधं द्विजं दृष्ट्वा निषादेन निपातितं ऋषेर्धर्मात्मनस्तस्य कारुण्यं समपद्यत। ततः करुणवेदित्वात् अधर्मोऽयमिति द्विजः निशाम्य रुदतीं क्रौञ्चिमिदं वचनमब्रवीत्। मा निषाद प्रतिष्ठां स्वमगमः शाश्वतीः समाः यत् क्रौञ्चीं मिथुनात् एकं वतीः काममोहितम्। तस्येत्थं ब्रुवतश्चिन्ता बभूव हृदि वीक्षतः शोकार्तेनास्य शाकुनेः किमिदं व्याहृतं मया। चिन्तयन् स महाप्राज्ञश्चकार मतिमान् मतिं शिष्यं चैवाब्रवीत् वाक्यमिदं स मुनिपुङ्गवः। पादबद्धो अक्षरसमस्तन्त्रीलयसमन्वितः शोकार्तस्य प्रवृत्तो मे श्लोको भवतु नान्यथा। शिष्यस्तु तस्य ब्रुवतो मुनेर्वाक्यमनुत्तमं प्रतिजग्राह सन्तुष्टस्तस्य तुष्टो भवन्मुनिः। सोऽभिषेकं ततः कृत्वा तीर्थे तस्मिन् यथाविधि तमेव चिन्तयनर्थम् उपावर्तत वै मुनिः। भरद्वाजस्ततः शिष्यो विनीतः श्रुत्वान् गुरोः कलशं पूर्णमादाय पृष्ठतो अनुजगामः। स प्रविश्य आश्रमपदं शिष्येण सह धर्मवित् उपाविष्टः कथाश्चान्याश्चकार ध्यानमास्थितः। आजगाम ततो ब्रह्मा लोककर्ता स्वयं प्रभुः चतुर्मुखो महातेज द्रष्टुं तं मुनिपुङ्गवम्। वाल्मीकि रथतं दृष्ट्वा सहसोत्थाय वाग्यतः प्राञ्जलिः प्रयतो भूत्वा तस्थौ परमविस्मितः। पूजयामास तं देवं पाक्याद्यसनवन्दनैः प्रणम्य विधिवच्छैनं पृष्ट्वा चैव निरामयम्। अथोपविश्य भगवानासने परमार्चिते वाल्मीकये च ऋषये सन्दिदेशासनं ततः। ब्रह्मणा समनुज्ञातः सोऽप्युपाविशदासने उपविष्टे तदा तस्मिन् साक्षाल्लोकपितामहे। तद्गतेनैव मनसा वाल्मीकिर्ध्यानमास्थितः पापात्मना कृतं कष्टं वैरग्रहणबुद्धिना। यत्तादृशं चारुरवं क्रौञ्चं हन्यात्कारणात् शोचन्नैव पुनः क्रौञ्चीम् उपश्लोकमिमं जगौ। पुनरन्तर्गतमना भूत्वा शोकपरायणः तमुवाच ततो ब्रह्मा प्रहसन् मुनिपुङ्गवम्। श्लोक एवास्त्वयं बद्धो नात्र कार्या विचारणा मच्छन्दादेव ते ब्रह्मन् प्रवृत्तेयं सरस्वती। रामस्य चरितं कृत्स्नं कुरुत्वं ऋषिसत्तमा धर्मात्मानो भगवतो लोके रामस्य धीमतः। वृत्तं कथय धीरस्य यथा ते नारदाच्छ्रुतं रहस्यं च प्रकाशं च यद्वृत्तं तस्य धीमतः। रामस्य सह सौमित्रे राक्षसानां च सर्वशः वैदेह्याश्चैव यद्वृत्तं प्रकाशं यदिवारः। तच्चाप्यविदितं सर्वं विदितं ते भविष्यति न ते वाग्नृतः काव्ये काचिदत्र भविष्यति। कुरु रामकथां पुण्यां shlokabadham manoramam yavat sthasyanti girayah saritascha mahitale. Tavat Ramayana katha lokeshu pracharishyati yavat Ramasya cha katha tvatkruta pracharishyati. Tavat urdhvamataschattvam mallokeshu nivatsyasi ityuktva bhagavan brahma tatraivantaradhiyata. Tataha sa shishyo bhagavan munir vismayamayayau. Tasya shishyas tataha sarve jaguhu shlokamimam punaha muhurmuhu priyamanaha prahuscha bhrusha vismitaha. Samaksharais chaturbhiryaha padair gito maharshina sonu vyaharanad bhuyaha shokah shlokatvam agataha. Tasya buddhiriyam jata maharsher bhavitatmanaha krutsnam Ramayanam kavyamitrusaihi karavanyaham. Udara vrutthartha padair manoramais tadasya Ramasya chakara kirtiman. Samaksharaih shloka shatair yashasvino yashaskaram kavyam udara darshanaha. Tada upagata samasa sandhiyogam sama madhurapanartha vakya baddham raghuvara charitam munipranitam dasha shirasascha vadham nishamayadvam. Narada Maharshi is Vakya Visharadaha, the one who knows the deepest meanings of every spoken word. After hearing the words of Narada Maharshi, Valmiki, the Mahamuni, reverentially honored the great sage along with his disciples. Devarshi Narada, having been duly worshipped by Valmiki, took leave of him and ascended to the heavens. When Narada had departed for the celestial world, Maharshi Valmiki set out towards the banks of river Tamasa, which wasn't too far away from the sacred river Jahnavi, another name for Ganga. Reaching the holy waters of Tamasa, Valmiki Maharshi noticed the pristine waters of Tamasa and spoke thus to his disciple Bharadvaja. "O Bharadvaja," he said, "behold the sacred spot of the Tamasa. Its waters are pure and tranquil, and the trees around stand high with spreading branches. These waters are as pure as Sanmanushya Manoyatha, like the mind of a virtuous man. Place down the kalasha, the water pot. Valkala Mama, bring my back garments to me, for I shall bathe in this most pure river." Hearing his guru's words, the noble disciple Bharadvaja brought and respectfully offered the garments to Maharshi. Then the rishi saw a pair of krauncha birds, a male and a female. But even as he had watched, a Nishada hunter, intent on sin, shot and killed the male bird in front of his mate. The bird fell to the ground, its body covered in blood. When the female bird saw her mate lying dead, she cried aloud in great anguish. Bereft of her companion, that bird, trembled and filled with sorrow, wept pitifully over her fallen mate. Seeing this pair of birds, the male slain by the hunter, the compassionate rishi's heart was overcome with grief. Moved by deep sorrow and compassion, Valmiki Maharshi, his mind agitated, spoke these words to the cruel Nishada. "O Nishada," he said, "you shall never attain rest or lasting renown, since you have slain one of these krauncha pair." And right after having spoken these words in such anguish, Valmiki Maharshi was filled with wonder as to how these words he had spoken earlier came out in the form of a beautiful shloka. Reflecting for a moment, the illustrious Maharishi looked towards his disciple and said, "The words I just spoke in sorrow, this utterance born of grief, has taken the form of a beautiful shloka." Bharadvaja, the Shishya, agreed. Then, performing his bath at the sacred place, the Maharshi returned to his ashram, his mind filled with the recent events. The humble disciple Bharadvaja, following his guru's command, took up the kalasha filled with water and walked behind him. Together they entered the ashram. There Valmiki Maharshi sat in deep dhyanam. At that moment, the Mahateja Chaturmukha, the Lokakarta Swayam Prabhu, Bhagavan Brahma himself appeared in the Valmiki ashram. Seeing the Bhagavan, Valmiki Maharshi rose with reverence. Pitamaha Brahma, smiling and radiant, addressed him kindly. Valmiki Maharshi worshipped the divine Brahma with offerings of water for the feet, a seat, and words of reverence, and bowing properly. Then, seated amongst the great rishis, Brahmadeva invited Valmiki to take his own seat. When the Valmiki Maharshi was seated before him in devotion, Sakshat Lokapitamaha Brahma himself began to speak. But Valmiki Maharshi was distracted in deep contemplation about the earlier events and was reflecting upon the act of the hunter that had brought about the bird's sorrowful cry. Recalling the plaintive sound of the Krancha bird and thinking again upon the event, he spontaneously uttered the same shloka again, moved by compassion. When he thus repeated it, his mind absorbed in that emotion, Brahma, smiling, spoke to the great rishi. Let this very verse stand as it is composed. There is no need for further thought. By my will alone, O Brahman, the river of divine speech, Saraswati, has begun to flow through you. O Munipungava, continued Brahma, compose the entire story of Rama, the righteous one, the divine, the wise, known and honored throughout the world. Relate the whole course of events, as you've heard from Narada, both the told and the untold deeds of that noble one. Tell the story of Rama, of Lakshmana his brother, of the Rakshasas in full, and of Vaidehi, and by my varam, you will now know all of their actions, both the known and the unknown ones. And even what is yet unknown to you shall become known. In your poem, O Maharshi, not a single word shall be untrue. Compose the divine story of Rama in charming verses, for as long as mountains and rivers endure upon this earth, so long shall the tale of Ramayana be sung among men. And as long as Rama's story is told in this world, your own fame shall live. Until that time, O Maharshi, you shall remain among men. Having said this, the blessed Brahma vanished from the place. Then the Maharshi, together with his disciples, stood amazed, filled with wonder at what has just occurred. All his disciples again recited the same verse, their hearts filled with joy and astonishment. In the presence of his gathered students, the Maharshi sang the verse once more, and through his noble emotion, his sorrow again transformed into a song. Then, in the mind of the Maharshi, purified and inspired, arose this thought: I shall compose Ramayanam in such verses as these. He therefore created a poem, noble in meaning and diction, graceful in form, and harmonious in sense, celebrating the deeds of Rama, remaining true and faithful to what he had heard. He joined his verses with perfect compounds and euphonic harmony, the words even, sweet and profound in meaning. Thus, the sage composed the tale of the noble Raghava, describing the slaying of the 10-headed Ravana, and bade the world to listen. And thus, Ramayanam, the Adi Kavyam, came into existence.